My golden child brother proposed to my fiancée at my wedding. With my parents' support, I threw them out and cut them off. I'm a 30-year-old guy, but don't let that fool you into thinking I've got it all together. If you looked at me from the outside, you'd probably see just an average guy with an average family. Maybe assume I grew up with decent people who loved me. That couldn't be further from the truth. I was the firstborn, and like any kid, I wanted my parents' attention and love. My younger brother, F, came along, and it was like I suddenly didn't exist. F was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, while I was nothing more than a shadow. It didn't matter what I achieved, what milestones I hit. All my parents cared about was him. Once when I was 16, I'd saved up for months to buy a crappy secondhand car. It wasn't much to look at, but it was mine. I thought, finally, here was something they couldn't take away from me. But a week later, I walked outside, and there was F sitting behind the wheel like he owned it. I stormed over, yelling at him to get out, that it was my car, and he had no right. He just looked at me, grinned, and said, "Mom and Dad said I could use it whenever I wanted. You should be grateful. I'm even interested in your old junk." Furious, I ran back inside to tell my parents. Maybe this time, I thought they'd finally see my side. My mom just rolled her eyes. "It's just a car," she said, brushing me off. "Stop being so selfish and let your brother use it. You know he's more responsible than you." I don't know why I was surprised. That's how it always was. Every birthday, every holiday, every moment that should have been special for me was overshadowed by them showering F with praise. They didn't care about my dreams, my accomplishments. Hell, they barely even cared if I was there at all. By the time I was 18, I'd had enough. I moved out, put myself through college, and landed a job that made me proud. I was making it without their help, building a life they had no part in. And then I met Elle. Elle was different. She was kind, supportive, beautiful, and most importantly, she really saw me in a way no one else ever had. I thought that maybe, just maybe, my family would be happy for me when I brought Elle around. When I introduced her to them, it was like we were an inconvenience. It barely acknowledged her. F, on the other hand, was far too interested. I could see him looking her up and down, flashing that smug grin of his, as if she were something to win. As we got closer to the wedding, things got weird. F started bumping into Elle in places he had no business being. One day, she called me after running into him at the grocery store. He'd followed her around, giving advice on what she should buy. Another time, he showed up at the coffee shop she went to before work. Elle thought it was funny, chalking it up to him being lonely. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that F was up to something. But what he did at our wedding, I wouldn't have predicted that in a million years. Ceremony itself was perfect, or at least as perfect as it could be with my family's judgmental faces watching from the sidelines. Elle looked stunning, and for a moment, I thought maybe I'd finally left the worst parts of my life behind. Then, during the reception, when we gathered for speeches, F grabbed the mic. My heart dropped. I knew him, and the look on his face wasn't friendly. Today, he started staring right at Elle. I realized something I should have said a long time ago. He paused, savoring the silence, as everyone's attention turned to him. "Elle, I think you know that we have something special. That we'd be better together, better than you and my brother." I heard the gasps, the whispers spreading across the room. I couldn't believe it. I just confessed his love for my wife in front of everyone. It got worse. My mom jumped up, clapping as if she were cheering him on. "Yes, Elle, marry F. He's the right choice." My dad nodded, grinning. "You know it makes sense, sweetheart. F is the successful one, after all." Elle looked stunned, her face pale and eyes wide, as if she'd been slapped. The guests were shifting uncomfortably, whispering. I couldn't let this go on. I marched over to F, barely able to keep my voice steady. "What the hell are you doing?" I spat. F didn't even flinch, smirked, the smugness dripping off him. "I'm doing what I should have done a long time ago. You don't deserve her, and we all know it." Before I could respond, my grandmother, one of the only supportive members of my family, stood up, glaring at my parents. "This is shameful. How could you humiliate your own son like this? My mother didn't miss a beat, sneering back at her. Please, we're just doing what's best for Elle. She deserves a real man, not some second-rate disappointment. I had had enough. I turned to the security staff and pointed to my family. Get them out now. My dad's face twisted with rage. Throwing us out? We're your family. Family doesn't do this. I shot back, cold as ice. Family doesn't try to destroy someone's wedding. Get out or I'll call the cops. I flung forward, grabbing my shirt. You're gonna regret this, he snarled. You're making a huge mistake. Elle stepped between us, her voice shaking, but steady. I love him, F. I would never choose you. The room fell silent. The security escorted them out, my parents and F shouting insults, hurling threats, until the doors finally closed behind them. Stood there, staring at the closed doors, feeling both relief and something close to heartbreak. It just cut my family out of my life, and as painful as that was, I knew it was the only choice. Reception continued, though a heavy cloud hung over the celebration. I apologized to Elle, to our friends and family who had witnessed that nightmare. Everyone was supportive, rallying around us, determined to salvage what was left of the night. For a few weeks, things were quiet, and I thought maybe my family had finally gotten the message. Then the call started coming. My parents and F bombarded Elle with messages, telling her she'd made a mistake, that I was unstable and selfish, that she deserved better, and by better, he meant F. He tried every angle, guilt, manipulation, and even pity. Elle was strong, though. She blocked their numbers, their social media, even ignored a few anonymous messages that were clearly from them. They didn't stop there. My family, or rather F and my parents, went further. They started showing up outside our apartment building, waiting for her when they knew I wasn't around. They'd somehow weaseled their way in, convincing the doorman they had an emergency to handle, and would actually wait outside our door for hours, hoping to catch her. One day, they got lucky. Elle came home early from work, exhausted and just wanted to rest, only to find F and my mom standing right outside our apartment. They wasted no time laying it on thick, begging her to leave me for F, insisting, he's the one who deserves you. You're just wasting your time with a loser like him. F actually had the audacity to tell her he'd been in love with her from the beginning and that she belonged with him. That night, when I got home, I found Elle curled up on the couch, shaken and teary-eyed. She told me everything, and I could feel the anger boiling inside me. This wasn't just the usual crap my family pulled. This was straight-up harassment. They'd crossed every line, stomped right past every boundary, and didn't care who they hurt in the process. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I called a close friend of mine who worked in law enforcement, told him the situation, and asked him to come with me to confront my family. I wasn't looking for trouble, but I needed them to see I was done playing games. We drove to my parents' house, and the moment they opened the door, they looked smug, like they thought I was there to apologize, beg them to come back into my life. My dad sneered, "Are you here to apologize?" "No," I replied, my voice cold. "I'm here to tell you to leave us alone. You're not going to call us, you're not going to message Elle, and you sure as hell aren't going to show up at our home. If you do, I'll press charges. I have witnesses, evidence, and a lawyer who's more than willing to help me get a restraining order. Don't push me." My mom scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Come on, you're not serious. We're just trying to protect Elle from you. You should be grateful F even cares enough to get involved." That my friend stepped forward, flashing his badge. "He's dead serious. If you don't back off, you're going to regret it." He tried to laugh it off, but the look in my friend's eyes must have told them we weren't bluffing. I turned and walked away without another word, knowing that finally I had the last say. A few weeks later, I received a job offer in another state. Felt like the perfect opportunity to start fresh, far away from my family's toxic reach. Talked it over with Elle, and she agreed immediately. Packed up our things and moved, leaving no forwarding address, no trace of where we'd gone. I changed my number, and so did she. Left it all behind. Today we're happy. We've built a life filled with respect, love, and genuine support. Elle is my everything, and together we're creating a family based on kindness, not control. The shadows of my past might still be there, but they no longer control me. I cut them out, and for the first time in my life, I feel free. Anyone dealing with a family that thinks they own your life, stand your ground. No one has the right to rob you of your happiness, and sometimes you have to let go to truly find peace. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.